How's it going, Gumi Gang? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to my first official video covering a shotgun for Black Ops 6. That's right, we finally have the beta, and overall it's been a little bit of a mixed bag for me personally, not just with shotguns but the game in general. But with today's video, I want to go over the shotgun that we have access to, the Marine SP, and share with you guys some class setups, talk about a lot of the attachments and what they do to get an idea of what this game is going to be like when it actually comes out, and so that with the next day or maybe the next weekend of the beta, you have something you can kind of work towards with this gun. And as always, timestamps will be in the description below, and of course at the end I'll share my overall thoughts on the shotgun itself. So the Marine SP is a very slow firing pump action that has the potential to one-shot kill enemies in Black Ops 6. Now the one-shot kill range I haven't been able to actually test because I can't really find any players that are AFK or anything and ping them, but basically it feels like it's around that kind of 7-meter mark. It's a little hard to gauge in game, so just take that with a grain of salt, but it is capable and it feels kind of like what Modern Warfare 3 shotguns felt like, or at least the Lockwood 680 feels very similar to that in terms of its one-shot potential. Its rate of fire that I was able to measure by hand is pretty bad, and the rate of fire I got was about 61 rounds per minute. That is extremely slow. Like, that's one of the slowest I've ever seen for a pump action in recent years. If you make it to where it's a 2-shot kill, you miss that one shot, your time to kill basically goes up to almost a whole second. It's about 983 milliseconds, which is kind of insane. Now with the rapid fire mod attachment, it takes it up to about 72 rounds per minute, which is much more in line with where it should be, but still extremely slow, very unforgiving. Your time to kill for 2 shots then is about 822. This is a gun you do not want to miss your one shots with. It is extremely unforgiving, and it's a very hard gun to make work for a lot of different reasons. One of the main reasons it's so awkward is because of its sprint to fire speed. Now if we take a look, I measured all the sprint to fire speeds, the tac sprint and normal sprint for all the base guns we have in the beta thus far, and keep in mind this is at 60 frames per second. It's not 120, so it's not going to be as accurate. I don't have access to any in-game stats. This is all hand tested, so there's definitely room for a little bit of some error there, and it's also not going to be 100% exact, so keep that in mind. But basically the Marine SP is kind of in the middle here. It's not as slow as the LMGs and snipers, but it's definitely slower than the SMGs and the ARs basically, so that is one of the reasons it can be so finicky. But the Marine SP, very slow sprint to fire speed by comparison to a lot of SMGs, and this is just the base gun. Again, keep that in mind. Now I want to talk about all the attachment categories and kind of some attachments that you should be paying attention to. For the optics, I didn't really go super in depth with them. There might be some secret ones that are like, they reduce your spread to nothing, which is kind of cool, but rocking a scope on a shotgun like this where like 7 meters is your one-shot kill range is pretty bad, so I don't really recommend it if that's what happens with these optics, but generally it seems like they're just red dots and nothing really special about them. Now the muzzle category is interesting because we have 3 attachments to really pay attention to. The muzzle brake you can ignore. The modified choke is nice because it's the one choke that helps with our aim down sights pellet spread by the most, and in game it's really not super tight. It is noticeably tighter, but it's not going to be like a slug how some of the other shotguns can be in other COD games. Then we have the suppressor, which is definitely a underutilized attachment for shotguns, especially if you're a guy who likes to flank and be very kind of discreet with a shotgun. This is going to be a good attachment, but usually you want to rock the modified choke for most engagements. Then we have the full choke. The full choke is a hipfire spread one, which only affects, of course, your hipfire spread. So these 3 are the ones you should be paying attention to. Generally, you're going to be rocking the modified choke for most of your standard builds if you're just going for solid aim down sights builds. In the barrel category, we have 5 to choose from, and really only 2 of them I found were even worth it. The long barrel is by far the best because it boosts your one-shot kill potential. I want to say out to around that 10-meter mark. It's a little, again, hard to say, but it's a noticeable increase to your one-shot kill, so you can get some pretty solid one-shots if you have this barrel equipped. The other one to pay attention to is the combat barrel. This is the one you can find on that pre-built Marine SP that you get from pre-ordering the game with that funky camo. This one basically has 4 rounds. You get better movement speed, which it doesn't actually say in the stats, but you do move faster, and it helps with your sprint to fire speed by a little bit, and it basically takes our 250 millisecond sprint to fire to about 216, so that is a nice little boost. But overall, combat barrel, long barrel, those are the only 2 you should really be paying attention to. For the underbarrel category, you can basically ignore all of these. I haven't found anything. There's no like secret hipfire accuracy that they help with as far as I can tell, and there's just really nothing to really use them for except for, I guess, idle sway, and I guess the last one has movement speed, so that is kind of usable, but there's much better attachments to use. You can pretty much ignore everything in the underbarrel category. Now with the stocks, there's a few different interesting ones to look at. First, you're probably going to want to use the balance stock when you're leveling up the gun, which is a real chore, by the way. Then of course the light stock is a really good one for aim down sight speed, but by far to me, the best one is the combat stock because it helps the most with your sprint to fire speed, and if you're a more mobile player, player and aggressive, it also helps with your slide to fire and dive to fire. And again, for the sprint to fire, it takes it down to about 216 milliseconds like the combat barrel compared to the normal 250. So to me, the combat stock is generally the one I go with almost all of the time. If you want to go for a strafe build, you could use something like the agility stock because it has aim down sight speed and aim walking and movement speed. But generally, again, most of your classes rock the combat stock. It's probably the best one because with sprint to fire speed in this game, we need everything we can get. The laser category to me is probably the most interesting of the bunch because there's a few really unique ones. The ones you should definitely be paying attention to are the fast motion laser. This one's going to help with sort of your spread when you're jumping around and sliding and diving. It's not super crazy noticeable, but it does help for consistency because this thing can be very inconsistent. But to me, the last two are the most interesting. The Strelok laser is really cool because what it enables you to do is as soon as you aim down sights or aim in, your spread condenses almost immediately to what you have with your choke and your aim down sight spread. You can see this yourself if you put it on in game. You can see that as long as you aim down sights, it goes in super quick. It makes it super good if you're one of those players who likes to get in quick and you're jumping around. This is probably the best laser for like if you're kind of jumping and sliding and stuff because again, no matter what you're doing, as soon as you aim down sights, it tightens up immediately to your aim down sight spread. Super cool and interesting laser. I love what they did with this. I really think this is a cool laser I'd love to see in other CODs. So really cool stuff here. Then we have my favorite, the tactical laser, because yes, Tac Stance is back sort of, and this is the laser to actually enable it. This is a really fun build, and of course, as you would expect, it's my favorite way to run the shotgun, so you can expect a Tac Stance laser build in the end of the video. Now, one of the things that's interesting that I want to point out is if you want to get a better spread with your Tac Stance, you have to kit it out for hip fire spread. It's not aim down sight spread, which is kind of strange, but if you, for example, rock the choke that helps with your hip fire spread with the Tac laser, you'll notice it does actually help your spread in Tac Stance. So if you want to get a tight spread with Tac Stance, that's the way to go. Unfortunately, you can't rock anything else to help with your hip fire spread, so it's kind of a womp womp moment. There's not many attachments, just like with sprint to fire speed, that will help your hip fire spread. So kind of sad to see, but yes, Tac laser is easily my favorite laser. When it comes to the mods, of course, rapid fire is probably the must-have attachment. Out of all these attachments for the shotgun, rapid fire is probably by far the most like you need to have this, just because it helps to some good degree for your rate of fire. So I really recommend it. 12 gauge slugs, you can just put them in the trash. They just don't belong in this game at all. I think they're just kind of put in there and they're not like balanced yet. They're just kind of this placeholder. And you can tell, by the way, 12 gauge slug, if you look at the icon, it's just like 3 bullets. They're not even shotgun shells. So don't really use these at all. They're terrible. There's no redeemable factor. I feel like it lowers your one-shot kill potential. Doesn't make it any more consistent. You still get hit markers. So why make it harder for yourself at all? Do not bother with 12 gauge slugs. They are terrible. Okay, so now we've gone over all of the attachments and the ones that I think you should be keeping an eye out for. So now I have 2 class setups that I want to share with you guys that I think you should be giving a try in this beta, either next weekend or in the next day or so. This one is a full aim down sights focused build. We're rocking the modified choke for a better aim down sight spread, the long barrel for, of course, more range, the combat stock for better mobility and handling, or rather handling, the Strelok laser, which is my preference for this kind of build because it immediately tightens up your spread to be aim down sights tight as soon as you aim in, which is very nice, and of course, rapid fire. Now, the next build I want to show you guys is my personal favorite, which I found to be the most fun, and this is a suppressed Tac Stance build. Now, for this one, we're rocking the suppressor, the long barrel, the combat stock, and then Tac laser and the rapid fire mod. The reason I'm rocking the suppressor is because I'm very much so a very flanky type of person, and I love to be discreet, and this shotgun is loud, and since you do appear on the minimap with a red dot when you shoot, it's just, you're kind of like a sitting duck with this shotgun since you don't have much range. So having a suppressor, even though it's not going to be tightening up your spread any like the choke for hip fire would in this particular instance with Tac Stance, I feel like it's well worth it, and you should definitely give it a try. If you find it's a little too wide for you, even though it's still pretty tight, you can put on that last choke, the full choke, to get a better hip fire spread. But in my opinion, trust in the suppressor, be very flanky, and be very quiet. This is a great way to use the shotgun since it's not always going to be a one-shot kill, and you need to have that follow-up, and you don't want to give yourself away. As for my thoughts overall on this shotgun, I don't think it's as bad as most people make you believe it is online. Like, yeah, it's pretty bad in some ways, but it's also got a decent one-shot kill in this game, like in the context of this game. It's really not bad. My biggest complaint is the sprint to fire speed and the lack of attachments for it and helping it, and also the fact that outside of its one-shot kill range, it's really a toss-up. Like, I know it's a shotgun, it's only supposed to be good at like close range, but in most Call of Duties, you can challenge people at like 20 meters. As long as you can hit your pellets right, it'll take 2 to 3 shots. But this thing, it just does not have any damage whatsoever at that range. I would like to see that actually change and that get buffed up a little bit so you can actually challenge people if you're good enough and hit your shots well at those really crazy distances. Of course, the time to kill is going to be really bad, but if you can hit your shots and peek around corners, it'll be super fun. But yeah, I'm okay with the one-shot kill range where it's at. I would just like to see better mobility and handling for this thing, and then I think we have a pretty decent shotgun on our hands after you level it up. When you're going from 0 to max level, it's a chore, but once you start unlocking attachments like the long barrel, the chokes, and the Strelok laser, or something like the Tac laser, it starts to change around a little bit and it gets a little bit better. But I do think the sprint to fire speed definitely needs a buff. I think the damage outside of its one-shot range definitely needs a buff as well. Otherwise, not super bad. But those are just my thoughts. So as always, I want to know down below in the comments, what do you guys think about the shotgun and the beta? Are you guys enjoying the beta? Do you think the shotgun's really, really bad? Or do you think that it's actually better than a lot of people think? So with all that being said, I will see you guys in the next video.